Hi, my name's Rohan.
I'm Scott Anderson.
Today I'll be interviewing Scott, who got his degree in electrical engineering and computer science from MIT. So to start off with, what was your experience like in college, and what made you want to go into electrical engineering and computer science?
Well, it was a while back, but in the 80s, as high school, trying to decide what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, college, those sorts of things. I just looked at the list of what are the high paying jobs, and worked down that list. And I wanted a high paying job that didn't require advanced degree and didn't require travel and was basically just a 9 to 5. Um, And so, even though at the time petroleum chemical engineering was more, you have to travel to the oil fields to do that. And at the time, computer engineering didn't really exist. Programming wasn't really a major. You it wasn't quite at that point. I think maybe some places did, but MIT didn't really offer a computer science major. It was more of a subset even of electrical engineering. Um, I don't know if that's still true today, but they preferred you to understand the hardware before you actually started writing software, and so that's a nice way to do things. Get a nice foundation there. So I just went through, and so I decided, well, electrical engineering at MIT, that's kind of the highest thing I could go for. I didn't get in on the first round, but did get in. Then I did get into Princeton, but then I got into MIT on the second round, ended up going to MIT. But the main reason I think that I actually got in is because I was taking college classes. And I was taking college classes at the local Auburn. Uh, I was in Alabama at the time. I wasn't happy with my high school. And so I found out I can just go right to college. Uh, so even as a high school sophomore, uh, you didn't have to have a high school degree. You didn't have to have anything. Just get accepted and start taking classes. And I took calculus and a bunch of math classes, physics, chemistry. Ended up taking about 10 college classes before I graduated high school. And I think that's what got me into MIT, because the high school was not probably good enough. That and probably the fact that I was in Alabama at the time. I was Air Force. My dad was Air Force, so we were there for a couple of years. And so they probably said, we don't get many applicants from here. So compared to New England, New York, a lot of people from there. Studying, um, I was more of a B student. I wasn't trying for straight A's. I definitely enjoyed the social side. Uh, I would definitely recommend that you not get too wrapped up in grades. A lot of people, especially at MIT, they did the first year pass fail to try and teach you not to be super caught up in grades and to get used to the fact that you might have been a straight A student in high school, but at MIT, you're probably not. So uh, that's they kind of downplay grades a little bit. It's really not important unless you start applying to grad school. So you want to have a decent GPA. And here's one life lesson that I would definitely recommend is if you get your first job, hopefully it's at a decent sized company and they will have an education benefit, and go use whatever they pay, if it's 50%, to get your master's degree right out of college, but have your company pay for it. And so I ended up doing that, but it was kind of by spite. I had a couple years where I had good bosses and real big raises. And then the third year, I had a boss who was a little bit jealous of what I was trying to do and didn't like the fact that I was sort of a maverick. And So he kind of tried to put a stop to some things, and he didn't give me a big enough raise. So I looked through their benefits and saw that they had the education benefit. And I said, okay, here's a good way to get an extra 5, 10 grand out of the company. Um, and then I left the company and started my own business. But definitely look, whatever benefits the company gives you, look through those and get them as maximized as quick as possible. The two biggest ones being matching funds for retirement. If you don't know what that is, that's where you put in uh, a certain percentage of your paycheck for retirement, and they double the funds, usually up to like 3% of your salary. So that's an extra 3% pay. That's free money. So don't walk away from money on the table. That's big advice. Don't get too caught up in grades. You want them to be good enough to get into grad school, but B's are fine for that. Don't try for the super straight A's. And definitely take advantage of the people you meet in college. You will not have an opportunity like that again. Especially like if you're in a dorm or a frat, just the ability to interact with people. Some people get lifetime relationships, lifetime networking. Certainly places like Harvard and doctors, they hang out with with people they went to school with for life. So, and some frats, I was not in a frat. Was not into anything like that, but some of those, it can work out well for some people in terms of networking, and you can get contacts through your frat nationwide. Sometimes that's pretty good. So yeah, I would definitely say in high school, the grades are more important to get into college. But in college, the grades aren't quite as important to get into grad school. And I would definitely not worry about something like a PhD. A lot of cases, that's a negative on your resume. I've worked with PhD people, and if you spend too much time in academia, it really changes your mindset for working in business and production, if you're putting out a product, it's got to get out. You've got to have you got to have more time sensitive. Whereas if you're in PhD, they don't press you for time. And I've seen some of the people who've gotten PhDs just not have the focus that a production might need. And I've seen people interviewing or getting resumes with PhDs and just throwing them right away. Master's degree is definitely way to go. An MBA in some cases. I got a master's in engineering management, which is a technical MBA, how to run a technical business, not a McDonald's or a used car place. But then I also started my own business. So any technical degree would always help. But I would definitely look at getting a master's as soon as possible. That will definitely set you apart for years. And even though you may not learn anything relevant, my degree is 40 years old. But it's still a big deal seeing MIT and an MBA on my resume. That still opens doors and gives you extra choices. In terms of getting into college, what they're looking for is consistency, commitment. What they really hate is bringing someone in and within 4 years they've dropped out because they couldn't handle it or whatever reason. So they're looking for something you've done in your life that particularly you've lasted for 4 years. Is it Boy Scouts? Is it band? Is it sports? Is it a musical instrument? Is it just a hobby? Anything you can show that you've dedicated consistency over time, that's going to be huge on your application. even more so than, any one accomplishment. Just showing that you can steadily achieve something, and commit to something over time. Karate, um, anything like that. Um, so I would definitely look at uh, anything that you've been doing in grade school or in middle school. Maybe try and continue that, instead of doing 1 year of this and 1 year of that. Or I did violin, and then I did football, and then I did basketball, and then I did debate, and then I did chess club, and then I did this. They're looking for more of a commitment on something straight through. It's also nice to show, a lot of things you've tried, but look at things over time, that show you could stick things out. Uh, Obviously, the obvious things are still going to count: your grades, your test scores, your teacher recommendations, any of your school, after school stuff, extracurriculars. But commitment's a big thing if you can leverage that, and dedication, passion. If you can show, like in your applications, that you're passionate about something. They don't like people who don't. It's okay not to know where you're going, but to at least, because not everybody's going to know exactly what they want to do, but they want to see that you've put some effort and some thought into it. You've got some passionate areas that you're thinking about, even if you haven't decided. But show that you can do something, that you can get excited about something, you can commit to it, and you can see it through. Uh, what else? Yeah, just don't ignore the social side of high school or college. Um, those are some years you'll never get back, that where you're put in the same environment with people mostly similar to you, but a lot that aren't, that you could also learn from. Um, Take advantage of that. Meet people, learn about. Uh, 40 years ago, it was not quite as, it was a little more disjoint. If you were from different parts of the country, it was more likely you had differences. Nowadays, with the internet, people are more likely to be similar, but still, talk to new people, make friends who aren't like you, pursue subjects in college didn't think you'd be interested in. Just try them out. Take some classes some humanities classes, like logic or a language or psychology or something that's just completely unrelated to tech, and explore that. That would be a recommendation. That's mostly it. Then in the workplace, uh, don't buy into HR. HR works for the company, they don't work for you. Uh, Everything the company tells you is going to be a lie, or it's not a lie, but subject to change and their convenience. So definitely get everything up front. Don't let them promise you a raise in a year. Either get that in writing or get it up front. Don't be afraid to leave a company. Don't buy into working 60 hours is going to get you a raise. Gen Z, I know, is already aware of a lot of this stuff. Don't pour your heart and soul into a company, but most of you haven't actually worked for a company, but that's a valid attitude. Take everything they say as a grain of salt. They're not your family. They're not your friends. It's a business. You're there to make money for them. And as long as you can be productive enough in your role, then they will pay you, and it's a nice business transaction and everybody's happy. But believing that they've got your back, or something that the manager says this year will pan out next year, be very wary. Managers change all the time, owners change, priorities change, businesses change, the market changes, and you are at the bottom of the priority list. So get what you can out of the company. Like I said, maximize whatever benefits they have, go through their benefit list. Make sure you're getting everything you can. If uh, they've got bus passes or um, uh, membership clubs to workout clubs, make sure you're getting everything they offer. And keep your eye out and make sure that what you're doing at the company is something that benefits you and not just them. So if they want you to learn a new system, if it's a system that you could, if it's like a new programming language, well, you could use that at another company. But if it's like they want you to figure out how to do the maintenance on their Recycler 2000, that's going to kind of pigeonhole you directly into something only they need. So as you're working, work on building your resume. Oh, the other thing that happens is like somebody will work for a company for 10 years and then they'll go apply to somewhere else thinking they have 10 years experience. A lot of cases, what they did is the same thing they did the first year. They did it again the next year and the next year and the next year. They have 10 years worth of 1 year experience. They don't have 10 years of different experience. So you need to show that you're growing, and also you need to grow. Don't be afraid to do things that are outside your job. My first job was supposed to be electrical engineering, but I got into inventory maintenance, defect tracking systems, uh, production procedures, training techs, uh, all kinds of things on how to support the business, how to produce. We were doing dialysis machines, but just how to support production, and what I also learned where the money goes in business. Why, uh, what makes the business profitable? What is the effect of salaries versus taxes versus inventory versus rent? How does all that factor into return on investment? How does the business make money? If you understand how the business makes money, you understand how you can help the business make money, and you're going to be more valuable. And then if you actually end up starting your own business or being part of a startup business, you're going to focus on the money and the money flow more so than, hey, this is cool tech. This will be fun to do. So you need to mix both of those. What are the priorities of the business? What are the cool tech things? What is it I want to do? What are the things that are going to enrich me, enrich my resume, and balance all that and move on out. Yeah, after 3 years at my first job, I left with the director of engineering and we formed a consulting firm. And I was with him for 3 years, and then I left on my own and did consulting for about another 3 years as a sole proprietor. And then I actually incorporated in 97. And so I've got my own business since 1997. It's been profitable every year. Very few people could say that. Now, I may only have one employee at this point, me, but there was times when I had others. But even so, it's still going. Currently, I do kind of 1 year contracts, and usually take a couple months off, look for something else and do something else for a year. I've been doing remote work since 1990. In a lot of cases, it's remote work for other companies in Denver, but doing it here. I've got multiple computers. I've got electronic station with oscilloscopes and logic probes. I do solder work. I build circuit cards. So mostly what I've been doing lately is I'll design a circuit card, get it built. I'll bring it up, as in putting in power to it, make sure it all works to power, then put in the basic operating system pieces, and then build up from there, add in the actual application. Then I do C++ work on Windows to maybe talk to the device, maybe relay data up to the web. Um, so I've used my degree uh, for electrical engineering as well as software.
Yeah.
When I first got out, I was hired as an electrical engineer. I was kind of horrified to find that circuits are still being designed on paper and pencil, stencils and erasers and vellum. Um, and nobody had computers on their desk in '87. And they still had a secretary typing pool. You'd handwrite something, you drop it in a pile. Someone in the one out of 6 secretaries would grab it, type it up, put it in the outbox. You'd go pick it up. I said, no, this is not. This is kind of old fashioned. So I spearheaded getting PCs on everyone's desk. Used OrCAD for designing circuits, AutoCAD for designing some mechanicals. We used WordPerfect, taught the secretaries how to use word processors, taught all the engineers how to do their own typing, and got printers in there instead of typewriters. And within the 2 years, year or two, then started networking things together. I actually ran coax, not RJ45, but it was actually coax first, um, very first networking. So I was a little early there. Designing circuits was kind of difficult. All the parts were in books, so you had to get a hold of the books. There was no real cross-referencing from manufacturers. Uh, so I kind of drifted more into software and production support. Did a bunch of database programming for inventory control and some database applications. And then as the internet sort of matured into the 90s and circuit manufacturers were putting their stuff online, I got back into circuit design. And now you can actually there's places you can cross-reference chips. So if you find one A to D converter, one USB drive, you can find others. You can also search on what's the availability, what's the pricing, what are the quantities. A big part of electrical engineering, which everyone thinks it's design, it's not really. It's the component selection. You actually in college you figure out, they teach you, oh, you need a transistor, you need an op amp, you need a capacitor, but you actually have to pick one. And so a lot of your time is spent searching for the one you want. What's the right price? What's the right physical size? What are the temperature characteristics? You know, what's price versus quality? And you know, you can go from surface mount components that are the size of a fly's eye to huge chips, and so you have to take all that into account. And obviously, the smaller ones can be more costly, or be harder to produce or harder to debug. But if you need a smaller package, it can be easier to deal with and have less heat overall. Those sorts of things. So I've done quite a bit of circuit design. I do embedded programming for putting computer systems into things that aren't computer systems. So things like printers, DVD players, door locks. I did the message signs by the side of the road that have the big letters on them, road closed, and people hack them and say zombie apocalypse. Those are powered by solar panels and a bank of car batteries. But I put those are microprocessor controlled and had Wi-Fi or wireless Wi-Fi modems. So was able to change those messages all the way back. I actually had systems in Louisiana during Katrina. And so I was actually changing messages on signs during Katrina, monitoring the evacuation. So where to go for rest stops, where to get off, where they'd have help. And so some of the signs were underwater and you couldn't physically get to them, but I could reprogram them from here. That's 20 years ago. So that was some of the first instances of putting Wi-Fi into those devices. So my career has mostly been putting Wi-Fi or microprocessors in devices that you may not think have them, but medical devices, kidney dialysis machines, surgical lasers, pH meter. I've designed those sorts of devices. What else have I done? Worked with construction equipment. I had positional sensors on the scoops and the device on the entire excavator, say, and you could remotely control these construction equipments and earth movers based on the position sensors and accelerometers. And so they had AI software that could actually do automated construction or excavation. A lot of what I'm doing lately is IoT, Internet of Things, devices that need to talk to the web. I did aquarium pumps, high-end aquarium pumps, where you needed to synchronize the flow rates for breeding coral. And that was all Bluetooth controlled and Wi-Fi and talk to the web. And so on the web, you could come up with a schedule and to program all the different flow rates in huge tanks with multiple pumps. So something that you may not have thought of that needs to talk to the web, an aquarium pump, everything's turning smart these days. And so this IoT is big for my career at the moment. That's what I'm working on. During the pandemic, I helped a lot of companies with parts shortages. Sure you've heard about all that. There was a time when it was really difficult to get microprocessors and power supply converter chips. That's gotten better now, but it still hasn't gone away. So that's a lot of other stuff that I was doing where what microprocessor can I swap this with? How do I redesign the circuit to enable a new chip? And how much software am I going to have to change to accommodate? But in my consulting career, I've worked with a couple dozen companies. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own advantages and disadvantages. It just depends on what tools are they using, what operating systems, how do they report to each other. Some places have meetings every day. Some places a couple times a week. Some places almost not at all. And it's just how they interact. Some places have Slack up all the time, which is an IM system where you're just constantly back and forth with everybody remote. You're in this sort of chat room. And then other places you're working remote and you might not talk to someone for a couple days, which I don't mind too much. And I'm used to, but some people that really bothers them. They can't go without really interacting in person. So that's something to take in mind.
Was there a particular project or something you got to work on that you really like?
That I'd liked. All of them are kind of neat. I like when I get to program boards that I designed. That's always more fun than programming something someone else did at first. When I create a board, I'll put in extra pins and extra locations for debug information. I'll have lights that I can turn on and off just so they can see what the software is doing, even if those lights aren't going to be needed in production later. I have signals that'll come out. I can run to oscilloscope. I'll have a beeper that'll make noises so that if something happens and I'm not paying attention and it goes beep, I'm like, oh, okay, something over here. Anything some of the things, the door lock I did actually turned into a product that I physically saw on the shelf at Home Depot. So that's kind of neat, seeing actually something you can go physically buy as a retail. Almost every day in Denver, I see those roadside signs, the construction signs I did. And so that was something that I could actually show my kids and drive by and say, I did that. And you remember when you came to the office and saw that and typed in. So that's really kind of rare for an engineer to be able to see what they've done in use or available for purchase or just out wild in the streets. One of the first things I did in the 90s was an apheresis machine, which is a blood component collector. And the old one had one needle in one arm that took blood out, ran it through a centrifuge, kept the piece it wanted, and ran back into a needle in your other arm. I was part of a team that redesigned it to be single needle, so it you only have a needle in one arm. It sucks out for like 45 seconds, and then pumps it back in for about 15 seconds. And there I actually had to design 3 different microprocessor systems for not redundancy, but safety double checking and fail safes. So I had one microprocessor that ran the GUI and the touchscreen, another one that just did safety system monitoring, checked all the parameters constantly, and then the main processor that actually controlled the pumps and centrifuge. And then I had them all networked with coax back in the day using DOS 3.22, which had networking for DOS before Windows. So I actually had built a network out of 3 microprocessors back before networking was even invented on Windows. So that was pretty fun, seeing that all come together, and having the systems that actually talk to the internet when you actually see things completely finished. That's always super exciting or just satisfying that push a button here and you see something on the web happen, and you push a button on the web and you see the pump turn over here. That still feels magic to me. I don't know that you can do something on the internet and actually see something move in front of you. I'm still it's still kind of magic, and I still enjoy that. So those are the things. Yeah, seeing something in use by people, seeing something for sale, and seeing something that actually connects through multiple systems, from a device to PC to Windows to Wi-Fi to the web, and all of that working. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Those are the types of things. But I've half of my jobs or have involved most of my jobs, I prefer to involve hardware. As I kind of said before, I like the push of production, that you have to get something out and it has to work, and you're selling something physical, you're actually making something, even though there's a ton of software in it, it's still a thing. I get frustrated with like apps on your phone where you download it and then the next day there's and it's buggy, and the next day there's an update, and the next day there's an update, and there's more bugs, and it never quite works right. I've been in some pure software environments where they don't have the production mindset that it has to work. They have more of a mindset where we'll just keep working on it. Just get it out the door and we'll just keep working on it. And that's more of a, you can do that in pure software, but if you're shipping a car, it's got to work out the door, period. And there may be a bunch of software in the car to run all the pieces, but that software may never get updated. So it's gotta work going out the door without having a recall. some of the things do get updates, but some don't. How often did you update the software on your well, I don't know if you guys even used TVRs or VCRs or DVD players or any of those sorts of things, but a lot of those had an option where you'd be able to go online and update software or download it to a USB and plug that into your stereo and update your Wi-Fi. But most people don't actually do that, um, or update the software on your printer. A lot of people don't even have printers these days. So, but updating the software uh, on your aquarium pump. I mean, who's going to do that? Uh, so it's got to be pretty automated or bulletproof or just plain work all the time. That's kind of where I'm coming from. Just early on, I just decided, the things that I'd been told with the company, I'm better off on my own. Just better off having control of everything, and being paid for getting the job done, and not being paid for showing up and looking good. Um, which a lot of the jobs are. If you show up on time, you're at your desk, you don't make waves, you're nice to the boss. A lot of times they'll just keep you around because you're not an issue, until they finally get into layoffs. And then you've got no resume and you've got no skill. But I was never at my desk. I was always either over in R&D or over in production. And it kind of frustrated bosses who are control freaks and want to know where you are and what you're doing. And so you've got to make a choice, kind of how much do you want to fit in? How much do you want to sort of overwork and try to impress? How much do you want to learn for your own self? And how much is this particular job and company going to work for you uh, in the coming years? Just don't be afraid to be your own advocate. Don't be afraid to find out the HR laws, the HR rules. Don't be afraid to leave a company. It can be scary trying to find jobs. I keep finding them, but some people seem to not be able to. I'm not sure why that is, but you gotta have that mindset that you're always able to, because you could walk in at any moment, and they say, meet us in HR, and you're out of a job for no fault of your own, no fault of your boss. They could have been bought out. One of their products could have failed. It could have been, any reason whatsoever. You can walk into work one day and turn around and you don't have a job there. So you've always got to be thinking about the next one. In some cases, I know people who've been at jobs for 40 years. But I know someone who was at a job for 38 years and just laid him off last month out of the blue. It's like, what do I do now? So keep yourself in mind would be and get as much as you can out of every opportunity, whether it be networking, whether it be a master's degree, whether it be perks. Don't take no for an answer if it's something you want, and don't be afraid to walk, and don't be afraid to be your own best friend. Don't rely on other people to bail you out. You're always going to be your best advocate, and if you learn how to do those things, that's always going to serve you well. Learn the tax laws. Learn how the money works. Don't focus solely on the tech. Don't get lost in the tech. You've got to understand the money. You've got to understand how the money comes in, where the money goes out, where the profit comes from. Even if you're not the business owner, that's always something good to know. Follow the money. You'll always hear that. That always always a good skill to know how that works. I figured out, that's the other thing I figured out, is if I can't get a raise at work, I can get a raise from the IRS. Just figure out a few more tax deductions. Um, Start a business, find a way to make money that way. So get an extra 3% here from their retirement matching, an extra $5,000 there for education expense, an extra grand here and there for other perks. All that stuff adds up, and then you get back another extra 5, 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand from the IRS just because you're deducting things better. Don't ignore all that. That's real money, and the sooner you got it, the sooner it's going to help you. The sooner you start putting things into retirement, um, you're not going to be able to afford much, but put away something, 3%, whatever the company's matching. Make sure you put stuff in retirement from day one. Make sure you put stuff in savings from day one. Don't go out and buy the flashy car with your first big raise. Um, you've got to focus on it. Money's a real problem for everybody, and definitely Gen Z types and the alphas coming up. That's rough. It's rough. So, but make sure you find a way to save a little bit and put in retirement a little bit and just keep that going. Something else I never did, which I still regret, is not buying any stocks because I never had any money. But I should have bought, $100 worth of Microsoft here, $100 worth of Google there. I mean, I was there when Google first started as a search engine, and could have invested, even $100. I was there when Apple first started. I was there when Microsoft first started, and we all joked about it. But back then you couldn't really invest. There wasn't really you had to get a real stockbroker. It was more of a process. Nowadays you can do this stuff on the internet, and you can do it with small amounts of money. Um, Obviously don't gamble and don't spend big, but you know, if I'd put $10 into Bitcoin, I'd be a millionaire right now. If I'd have put $100 into Apple 40 years ago, I'd be a millionaire. It doesn't take 5 grand, 10 grand, 100 grand to invest in these things. Some of these things, um, 20 years later, uh, turned into a huge investment. So I would look into that. If some new tech catches your eye or you start hearing it, consider throwing a few bucks into a stock purchase and just leaving it there. Um, Picking individual stocks is a loser game. Playing the stock market's a loser game. But things like that, just buying a little bit here and there of things that you know are going to increase. I could have made quite a bit of money and probably should have. But it was more of the fact that it was difficult to do business, to buy stocks back then. Now you can do things over the internet and with lower fees, um, and not in person. And I would definitely look into that as well, in terms of making money. But yeah, those are my main advice. Don't get bogged down into the tech. Don't think that's the end result. You're just going to get dead ended. If you're not looking at how the management works, how the process works, how the whole business works, the money flow, learn some software in addition to your engineering, learn other disciplines. If you're doing mechanical stuff, I mean, I did some mechanical design because I designed fixtures, enclosures, boxes, putting dials and buttons on a box. So even though I was electrical engineering, I got into a lot of software, and in software I did both embedded control systems as well as database systems, as well as user interface. I've done electrical design and circuit card design, and I've done some mechanical design as well. So any new skill, they'll let you do, expand. And when I was in production, try and get some R&D experience. So if you're in R&D, get some production experience. If you're truly tech, trying to get some management experience, try and lead a project. Just try different things. Try different things in high school and college and in your job. Talk to different people who are in your area and outside your area. Always be learning. and don't be afraid to learn things on your own. That's one thing MIT did teach or try to teach, and is how to learn. They said, you know, everything we teach you now, all these facts are going to be out of date, maybe even by the time you graduate. Uh, but what we are trying to teach you is, here's the structure. How do you learn something new? How do you problem solve? How do you approach a big project? How do you approach a small project? How do you work with other people? How do you work alone? How do you schedule your time? How do you prioritize? Those are things, life lessons you'd learn in college. Um, you don't necessarily learn them all in high school, because you don't need quite the same discipline, because you don't have all the same distractions. You don't have the girlfriends dragging you off. You don't have the boys, you know, let's go drinking, um, the same way in high school you do in college. So you've got to balance that. Do all those things, but also do the other things. Where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So that's
Right.
kind of where I'm at. I think I'm happy with my career. I'm working at home allowed me to spend a lot more time with my kids. Um, when my girls were born, the baby monitor was right next to my computer monitor, so I could watch them while I worked. When they're in the crib, and then in high school, uh, and I was working at home. I could see them when they came home from high school. Whereas if I wasn't going home until 6 o'clock, I would have missed lots of hours with my teens. So I'm real happy about being able to spend more time with my family. I didn't make millions of dollars. I didn't get super rich. I didn't start a business and work 80 hours and sell it off for millions of dollars. I know people who did. I work mostly 45 hour weeks. If I'm not getting paid overtime, they don't get overtime. Um, don't work for free. Find somewhere that'll pay you, and don't let yourself get paid in promises. Yeah, I work 80 hours for 6 months, and I promise at the end of 6 months we'll have a big bonus. Yeah, you won't. You won't. Um, maybe in some cases, I've seen some startups actually do a death march for a year, and then things got good, and then everybody got sort of rewarded at the end. But more often than not, they go out of business. A lot of times, I'd work for a company, help them design a product, and then say 3 years later, I'd try and contact them back for more business. Half of them are just out of business. Um, Half of them aren't, and I would go back and get some repeat business, and we're do the next generation, say, um, design or something new. But in a lot of cases, there's a lot of bad management out there, and it takes a lot of luck as well to get a product through the market and successful. So it's not just engineering skill. You need good salesmen, you need good marketing, you need to be able to treat your people well, you need good production, good inventory control, good purchasers. Um, Getting a new product out. I've been in many other situations, and very, very difficult. But it is satisfying if the few times, like I said, I saw my door lock sitting on a shelf at Home Depot. I was like, that I did that. That's real satisfying. Uh, and that's something that the software guys don't always get that same feedback. Like you program an app, sure, and you say, hey, here it is on my phone. It's not quite the same as say, here holding something or pointing to something. That's always fun. So
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for meeting with me.
sure thing. Yeah, that's kind of my life, kind of my advice. It's a little bit cynical, but just mainly be your own advocate, and don't believe everything you're told, and, learn everything you can, and do a variety of things. Enjoy what you're doing, but don't be afraid to try things you don't enjoy. That's a lesson. There's a lot of things that I was going to get assigned that I really didn't want to do. And in a lot of cases, if I was working with someone competent and I could see, maybe their excitement or what they're doing and learn something new and go, oh, this was actually like database programming. I didn't want to do that at all. And I don't want to do it at all now. But for a while there, it was kind of fun and learning about inventory systems and purchasing, um, and customer tracking, kind of boring, but ended up being kind of neat. So don't be afraid to try things that don't look fun. And don't be afraid to walk away from things when they end up not being. That'd be my advice. So yeah,
Yeah. Thank
enjoy
you.
what you're doing and just be your own best advocate, be my best advice.